Patch 1.32.9, October 21st, 2020. After extensive testing and careful observation of multiple tournaments, we're happy to release version 132.9 Balance Update. It focuses on changes to improve human versus undead and orc versus night elf matchups, with some quality of life changes and some long outstanding community requests. Thank you very much to you, the community. You were instrumental in guiding these changes, and the feedback we received through posts, videos, and tournaments were greatly appreciated. We'd also like to thank Back to Warcraft, DreamHack, ESL, WCG, WGL, and all of the community contributors who produced amazing games and content during this time. Your feedback was invaluable. That's nice. Human castle research cost for the gold decreased from 360 to 320. Developers notes, the goal here is to increase the incentive of human to go to castle as well as promote some one base options. Peasants HP increase from 220 to 230. Developers notes, increasing their health slightly should help players manage the early game harassment. Mounting damage for Thunderclap, not this auto attack, reduced from 60 to 115 and 160 on level 1, 2, 3 respectively, to now 60, 110 minus 5 and 150 minus 10. Now a quick peek at the patch video from October 17th will probably reveal that this is a further change from what it used to be. I'm just gonna open up the patch notes from October 13th.
Goes into one food.
We can actually see that on October 13th, they said they're gonna go for 60, 100, and 145. So we actually have a bit of a reduction in the nerf. It looks like baby steps is the name of the game for today's patch, and I can't say that I disagree with that. It's actually something I brought up on October 13th as well, especially provided they're going to be continually looking at the game and seeing how everything unfolds. As a smaller but very elite scene, we have less data to work with sometimes. There are very few super top pro players per race, but there is a healthy ladder both in Asia and in Europe, and those stats are getting looked at. And this is a little nerf, and I think I'm okay with that. I think that's nice. Rifleman attack delay reduced from 1.4 to 135. That's a small increase in damage. I think that amounts to about 3% increase in damage. With the additional changes to human, we felt that this previous change needs to be reverted. Yeah, it should be noted that Thunderclap will no longer be damage capped, as they said on October 13th. This is the only change to Thunderclap that is coming. Everything else we've been seeing for the last 2 months should be forgotten, except in perspective to what the final choice is. There were no other real balance patches in the last 2 months. This is it. The rest was all speculation and changes and baiting for ideas. So a buff to Rifleman. They attack faster. It takes less seconds than to their next attack. Spellbreaker armor reduced from 3 to 2. This is consistent with what they showed on October 13th. The goal here is to try to get away from mass spellbreakers in Human Mirror. This should help them a little bit. The other problem in Human Mirror is that slow and breakers and the water elementals or blizzard defeated knights before a human could get to knights. Human Mirror has, throughout the history of Warcraft 3, been about knights and mortars as well. Tier 3, fast expand, knights, mortars, griffins, flying machines. But Spellbreaker Sorceress started to become oppressive against that. You could never get there at the pro play. Though I think at medium level play it would be fine. So both of these changes will help a lot with that. And hopefully that will make Human Mirror once again, probably, arguably, the best mirror to watch. Human Mirror has been great in Reign of Chaos, early TFT, but it's been all breakers and zorks and priests for a long time. This will help to improve the human night elf matchup as well as the orc human matchup. Okay, and I think it will help in Human Mirror as well. It will help in the breaker matchup reduction. Siege Engine Tank Experience bounty increased from level 3 unit, which is also what a grunt is. from Grunt XP to Knight XP. From Grunt to Windrider. From Grunt to Knight. From Rifleman to Knight. So since each engine is 4 food, he used to be 3, because he's fortified with 700 health, this is a correct decision, I think. You can still save them and heal them for free with Staff of Sanctuary. You can still shuttle them in and out with Zeppelins, and you can still lose them as well. This seems to be consistent with how much effort it requires to kill one of them. Orc, the Great Hall supply, that's a change that they also showed either in the last October 13th patch note preview or in the 7 October one. This one apparently stayed. This is very exciting news for Orc players that struggle against Night Elf, which is almost everyone, in that you can actually be on scout while going for a single grunt, single burrow, single blade master opening. Before, 7 peons is what you needed on lumber, and you could not afford to miss any of them to scout for Tree of Life, Ancient Protector, or the positioning of Ancient of War. But thanks to the extra peon, you can now fit in 8 food before making your second burrow, and send one of those peons to scout. I think the best one to send is the one that finishes your altar, or the second to last, aka the 7th lumber peon. That is normally your last. Now I think you can send your second to last to start spotting for certain creep routes, not just against Night Elf, but in many matchups. But if you want to get data on your opponent's starting hero, like against Undead, you would want to send the 1 peon after the altar to check out their main base. On very large maps, your altar peon. So this is going to make orcs less gambly, less gimmicky, and more able to read the game, respond, and play well, which is quite nice. Blademaster Mirror Image, mana used to be 125 all the way back in ROC. Now it has been 100 for a while, and we've seen some use only against Night Elf to dispel, entangle, and acid bomb, to scout and to tank some damage, also from Huntresses, who do not choose who they bounce on. So even if a player is very good at knowing which image is real and which one is fake, which blade is real, it still takes Huntress bounce damage. So it's been quite helpful against Night Elf. Now it's going to be 80 mana. This is pretty exciting because a few weeks ago I was testing mirror image creeping. And you can have 3 consecutive mirror image on a level 1 blade, which allows you to scout and tank during creeps. With this change, you can have 4 consecutive mirror images. That's a pretty big deal. You can also combine it better with Windwalk than before. We are starting to also see emerging gameplay from Orc players using mirror image with Lightning Shield, which is super exciting, entertaining, and fits their faction theme. But the main deterrent is mirror image high mana cost. In addition to the Wisp Detonate change, we believe this should further promote the use of this skill. Torrent Chieftain Warstomp went through many iterations of nerf suggestions. The original stun time on heroes was 2, 3, and 4. They've now opted to go for 2, 2.5, and 3. That means that the stun time on heroes at new level 3 used to be what you get from level 2. And I just tested it, and I actually thought I skilled Warstomp level 2. I stunned and I realized it was the same. But it wasn't, because it was Warstomp level 3. So this is tested correctly as well. Like, it's one thing to write it in the patch notes, but I tested many of these changes inside a custom game already before making this video. So this seems to be correct. Shockwave's mana cost also went to 90. I still think Stomp is better despite these 2 changes, but there may be some situations where Shockwave just moved the needle a bit and might be slightly more interesting. We'll wait and see, and we'll test. Undead, Nerubian and Spirit Tower repair rate. So, the developer's note, the repair rate measures how long it takes for a building to be repaired. So the higher the number is, the longer it takes. Huh? So there was some confusion in the original preview notes where people weren't sure what that means when the repair rate changes. This should make it pretty clear beyond a doubt. And just going through the various iterations again of that buff, or of that nerf actually, I should say. Going through the old notes, they didn't touch it on October 13th, but they may have touched upon it in October 7th. But yeah, the rate is going to be 45. I think it used to be 35. Oh yeah, it used to be 35. They briefly considered 60, which would be a near halving of the repair rate. Now it's going from 35 to 45. So that's, what is that, about 27% nerf or so? Maybe 29% nerf, I think. Just kind of spitballing. But it's no longer a near like 90% nerf. So recent changes have allowed Undead to expand more easily. This is true. Dreadlord was buffed, Cryptlord was buffed, Necropolis, Haunted Goldmine, the amount of blights around the Goldmine, Acolyte, many buffs, and so we have seen a lot of expansion, which means that we see a lot of Nerubians. The repair rate of the tower should be brought in line a bit with other races. 45 is still 5 less than an Orc burrow, and considering that there will usually only be a maximum of 5 Acolytes repairing any burrow, we feel, any Nerubian, we feel this makes the most sense. Cool. Death Knight's Unholy Aura movement speed changed from 10, 20, 30 to 10, 17 and a half and 25. This is a small but significant nerf that deals with some of the immobility disparity between different races. Especially Unholy has been very helpful to harass against human peasants, where maybe a direct confrontation was either not possible or not advantageous, and Undead would do quick hit and runs, run away or chase peasants, run away from army. This will be a little bit less effective. This one is most noted in matchups where Undead goes for Unholy Aura level 2 early on a Death Knight 4. In some matchups, Undead does not pick Unholy Aura 2 at all, they go for Death Pact instead. For example, against Orc, Undead goes Coil, Aura, second Coil, then Death Pact, then they go third Coil, then they go at level 6 Death Knight to go for second Aura. So this pretty much does not move the needle in the Orc versus Undead matchup. If they still feel like they don't need Death Pact, but they go for Aura, they're already in a luxury position, and while this does matter, it's not going to be as big of a deal. The final one is also a pretty big deal, especially for FFA. You almost never get there in solo melee games. You almost never get there in team play, 2v2, 4v4, but you'll get there in FFA. So this is mostly an FFA nerf. This is a nerf, I would say, for the matchup where you don't go Death Pact, which is against Night Elf. Undead against Night Elf will feel this. It's a pretty big deal there. Because against Mana Burn Demon, you do not pick Death Pact usually. You go for Coil and Aura. And this is going to be felt by the Undead. 2.5 movement speed bonus lost, 2.5%. And against Human, I think Undead actually goes for Death Pact as well usually. It's safer against Stormbolt and Holy Light. In Undead Mirror, I'm not sure. I think it's Death Pact as well, but I'm not sure. So it is a nerf. Undead is statistically the best race right now, even though those statistics don't always tell the full story. So overall, some small nerfs so far seem to be in place. Cryptlord, level 2 and 3 Carrion Beetles. Hit points increased, which was previously decreased. 275 for 10. 300, 440, plus 30, plus 25. Okay, so I think they went very middle way on all the different possibilities. Movement speed reduced from 290 to 280, so 10 on all levels. Makes it a little bit harder for Cryptlord Beetle to get us around and to chase units such as Footmen and Headhunters, which often try to apply pressure on a Cryptlord expansion. Burrow ability for Beetles now requires the Burrow upgrade, which will be a pretty big deal for level 2 Beetles specifically, and maybe for level 3. Good change that was also requested by many people. Carrion Beetle level 2 collision size increased from 16 to 32. Okay, that was another suggestion from Happy. Most of these suggestions are all from Happy. Less movement, needing burrow, and collision size. He said it was stupid that Beetle level 2 are so small that they can fit everywhere, like a worker. So, okay. We like seeing more Cryptlord usage. I agree, and I think it's important to remember this and not to get blinded by the strength of the build, but to also applaud that the new Blizzard team has nonetheless created new avenues of play for Undead, which has been the most stale race ever in Warcraft 3, and the least successful in terms of prize money over the entire of Warcraft 3, and not by a small margin either. So having variety is important. Let's not make our hate of Undead to the point where they are not valid. So PitLord should be possible, but not like oppressive. It should be a smart change of build that should be possible for some players that like to play it. And hopefully they will have reached that sweet spot, otherwise iterate more. And then the explanation. Destroyer cast point time decreased from 0.83, which was higher than all other dispellers, to 0.66, which is slightly more still than the dispel speed of a priest and a walker and so on. So they are much more agile now at removing demon rejuvenation, removing spirit wolves and summons and slow and inner fire. They do this quicker, but it's not quite to the same level as other dispellers yet. They are of course flying, and that gives them positional advantage already often. Gargoyle has the new toggle called Prioritize. I saw a few cool changes on Reddit where people suggested new terms for prioritize, which is very it's very literal, right? There was like attack claws and all kinds of lore based names. I wish they went for one of those. Maybe they still will in the future, but for now it's just called prioritize. Feels very StarCraft. Easier micro for Gargs. Most of chat won't need that, but I will appreciate it when I play Undead. Necromancer Unholy Frenzy Drain reduced from 3 to 2 in another bid to bring Frenzy to the forefront of possibilities. Who plays this again? Is it TGW? Yeah, a few players play with Frenzy. Night End has played it, TGW, a few others. We'll see. Are they going to be a support unit? Can you just imagine if Happy gets one Necromancer with Frenzy? He already plays Banshees. He already micros his Lich like so crazy. He already gets 3 claws of attack every game on his Lich. And you give him 70% bonus attack speed. You're telling me that's not worth the investment, but 2 Banshees level 1 with Curse R. And it only reduces 2 health per second now. Necromancer upgrade is like 10 seconds or 20 seconds. I think it's worth it. It could be fun in 2-on-2 as well. Just 1 Necro on your Lich. A minor change. Rod of Necromancy cooldown increase from 22 to 26 seconds. So no longer will skeletons, which was just a suggestion and didn't happen yet, will they give 20 XP each? They still give 12 like they always have, or at least for decades. But Rod of Necromancy cooldown increased by 4 seconds. This is a big deal. Rod of Necromancy is still very cost efficient, and it won't affect you when you are not bound by the cooldown, when you just are casting it now and then. But I think this is most keenly felt when you still have only 1 hero, because 2 can actually share the cooldown. You can pass it over. Actually, it will be felt like almost always. This is a big nerf for an essential opening part of Undead. It feels like a much. It feels like a lot. And what's more is, I'm not sure where this came from. Is it their idea or was it someone else? I'm not sure. But this is a big nerf to an integral part of Undead play. I'm a little worried. I think 23, 24 might have been nice. The problem once again is, while Undead needs nerfing against human a bit, it's a very delicate balance because human fast expands against Undead every game. That means if they get nerfed even a bit to the point where they are not effective enough anymore at stopping the expansion, it's gonna be like the old days when Infi and Sky were around, where human just fast expands, they get towers, they become untouchable, you didn't deal enough damage, and then they go for tanks or griffins or night flying or whatever they're getting, breaker into knights, and it can be as hard for Undead, the reverse, as it has been for human from this side, because it is made or broken on whether human gets their fast expansion. Peasants plus 10 life. Rod of Necromancy plus 4 cooldown. This is a really big deal. I think it's too much. Even against human. But that's only counting Undead Human. Right? This also affects Undead Night Elf, Undead Orc, and Undead Mirror, whatever. This is a big nerf for Undead Orc as well. Which actually I think Undead Orc has never been fairer than it is today. It's so close to 50%, if not 50. Some people are going to believe Undead does better. Some people are going to believe Orc does better. And the statistics actually say at Pro Play Orc does a little better. But it's never been closer, and that's for sure, whether it's 50 or not. So this may just hurt a bit again. And this was not consulted as far as I know. But okay. Let's see how it plays out. Wisp Mana Drain 40, not 35. Detonate has become too powerful, especially against Orc. This is a small change. It's still going to be good. It's still going to be valid. 40 is still a lot. But that will help a bit. That can make the difference of whether or not you get that one bonus. Purge, yes or no. I like that they went small step. They came 50 to 25, then they were like maybe 35, now it's 40. I tested this and it works as written. Same with Archer. They said 10 health off, 260 to 250. I don't know that anyone was worried about it, because it used to be 245 3 years ago. For 10 years, before 3 years ago, so from 13 to 3 years ago, it was 245. And archers were good, but they weren't amassed like crazy 500 archers like now in every matchup. So they got plus 15 before in the Matt Morris patch where Keeper got buffed. And now they go down 5 of that 15 health instead of 10 of that 15. I think both would have been fine. Night Elf right now is top 2 races. Statistically, again, take it with a grain of salt. That's nerf number 1, that's nerf number 2. 1 buff and 1 buff. I think it's okay probably. 2 small nerfs, you don't overdo it, and also you don't push people that play Elf out of the game. Undead so far is the most nerfed by quite a bit. Night Elf a bit. They get +1 damage on the bear and Chimera friendly fire removed. So far the overview, just a quick summary before we move on. Small nerf to Elf, a little bit bigger nerf to Undead, big buff to Orc, small buff, very small, and then a small nerf to Stomp that is actually quite significant in the late game. But it's not affected against units. So Stomp is still good. So buff, buff, nerf. And then human is nerf, buff, tiny nerf, decently significant buff, small buff, and a small nerf. And then a small nerf. So probably Stomp is the most integral, but this is also super integral. Orc is the biggest gainer. Undead is the biggest loser, and human and elf, like elf is a small loser, and human, I'm not 100% sure, human is a small loser too, I think. They do get some buffs in the rifle and the castle, but overall, yeah, it's a loss. Peasant buff, that's a big deal, but overall small nerf. So human small nerf, small buff, a little bit bigger than small, and then a small nerf. PitLord, Rain of Fire range reduced. This specifically targets Undead PitLord push against human, and I think it will have that result. Items: Helm of Valor, Medallion of Courage, Hood of Cunning. Now no longer give 4/4, but they give 5/5 for each stat. They were underpowered compared to the others. That's true. Though these always help. Some of the others are doubles to something you already own, like Brilliance, Unholy, Kodo Drums. You could already have them. But that's a nice buff. Claws of Attack 6 is the second best item on that tier. Circlet is the best. Only they get nerfed to 5. Why I think this is in an isolated fashion a good change, because claws are quite powerful, especially for ranged heroes. And then blade if you go crit. I think circlet should have maybe been touched as well. Circlet gives 2/2, which is more than a hero's level worth of stats. Tome of Retraining reduced. This is an interesting change that I think is the biggest buff to Archmage, Shadowhunter, and Dreadlord. And one of the Wind nerf. 1 charge less. Good change. It's too powerful. Some art changes that I will allow you to read for yourself if you pause this video, but I'm not going to go through all of them. Custom game changes, campaign, and editor. Alright, now you know the changes. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel if you made it all the way here. Thanks very much. We're going to go test them out. You'll see that in the next videos too. Bye Twitch chat.